Dear my student, let's go today with the material related to chapter 6, which is related to the malicious software. The software which is attack your system, try to damage your information, damage your operating system or whatever the software inside. When we talk about the malicious software, then we would like to examine the wide spectrum of malware, threats, and countermeasures. We begin with the survey of various types of malware and offer a broad classification based first on the means malware used for or used to spread or propagate, and then on the variety of action or payloads used once the malware has reached a target. It means that through this chapter, we will examine the wide spectrum of malware, threats, and countermeasures. Propagation mechanism of the malware or the malicious software include those used by virus, worms, and Trojan. Payload system which is include the system corruption, bots, phishing, spyware, and rootkit. The discussion for this chapter will conclude with the review of countermeasure approach for the antivirus and the anti-worm, which is the countermeasure against the different type of malicious software. When we go step by step with each other for the material, we will see the definition which is coming from the National Institute for Standard and Technology. Define the malware as the program that is inserted into a system. You see here, the program, this software inserted into a system, usually covertly with the intent of compromising the confidentiality. This software which is inserted into the system have intent for compromising what? The confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of the victim data. Your data can be encrypted and decrypted, then compromise encryption, decryption. Your data should be as a data integrity, then compromise the data integrity and availability of that data for the legitimate user. Then when you talk about the compromising the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of the victim data or the victim application or the victim operating system or otherwise any annoying or disrupting the victim. It means that this is a definition coming from the National Institute for Standard and Technology. When we continue with each other here as a classification of the malware, we will see that the malware is classified into two broad categories. That category based on first on how it spread or propagate to reach the desired target. Mean that the different propagation, the way of propagation inside your system to reach the desired target. Then on the action or payload it perform once a target is reached. What action taken once that malware reach the target. Then this is a general classification of the malware from the propagation view and from the action taken when it reach the target or the destination of the attack. Let's start here with the virus. Piece of software that infect programs. This is the simple approach for the virus. What we call this is a piece of software that infect a program, modify them to include a copy of the virus, replicate and goes on to infect other content. It means that first modify them to include a copy of the virus, and replicate itself, easily spread through the network environment. It means that it can be spread through the network environment. As a virus component, we will talk about the virus component. We will talk about the virus phases. We have 4 phases for the virus spreading into your system, which is dormant phase, propagation phase, triggering phase, and execution phase. Each phase we will talk in details through the class material. And then we will go with the virus classification, and then worms. The second type of malware, which is the worms, which program that actively seeks out more machines to infect, and each infected machine serves as an automated launching pad for the attack or for attacks on the other machine. It means that the worm is propagate and replicate itself through the machine and from machine to machine to attack the other one, which is the best attack through the network connection. When we go also different type of worms here, as one of the famous worm here was the Morris worm. And when we talk about the technology right now, you have your mobile phone. Then we have the mobile phone worm. We will talk about that. And we will talk with each other also about the what we call here malware countermeasure approach. Then how to protect ourselves against the malware attack, what we call the software malicious software attack, but by what we call malware countermeasure approach. Ideal solution to the threats of the malware is the prevention, how to prevent that malicious software to attack your system. We have 4 main elements of prevention. We have a security policy, we have awareness, we have vulnerability mitigation, and the threats mitigation. We have to minimize the effect of the vulnerability. We have to minimize the effect of the threats over your system. Then the first approach here to be as a countermeasure, what we call prevention. How about if the prevention is failed? Then we have a technical mechanism that can be used to support the following threats mitigation, or the effect, minimize the effect of the threats through your system. What we call detection, identification, and removal. Try to detect. The first approach is prevention, but there is no 100% prevention for the attacker from outside, whatever software or user attack. That's why we said that we have to detect, identify what is the malicious software attack your system, and then try to remove that threats or that malicious software from your system. The end one, which is coming later, which is the recovery, how to recover your system if you have whatever the different damage in your system. I think that we will cover also the worm countermeasure, how to we have what we call virus countermeasure, worm countermeasures to protect your system against the worms also, and then we will come to the system here which is used for protection against the malicious software attack, what we call digital immune system. There is a details for that system. We will talk with each other through the class material. Thank you so much, and see you next class.